My partner and best friend had an affair behind my back. I'm not even sure how to start this, but I guess it starts with pancakes. Saturday mornings have been pancake day for as long as we've lived in this house. It's one of those little rituals I used to love. I make the batter the night before, put the good butter on the counter so it softens, and in the morning I can do the first pour before the coffee machine even finishes its first gurgle. The kitchen fills with that warm flour and vanilla smell. He plays music on his phone, always something soft and low, like a playlist meant for sunlit mornings. I stand there in my mismatched pajamas, hair up in some chaotic stack, flipping pancakes while our dog curls under the table like a croissant. He comes in, kisses me on the top of the head, and steals the first ugly pancake because that one's mine. It's our thing. This past Saturday was exactly like that. Until it wasn't. It was a quiet morning, the kind where the sun is kind even when it's bright, and dust motes dance if you look for them. The windows were cracked just enough to let the cool air through, and I could hear the tiny hiss of batter touching the hot pan. He walked in wearing his marled gray sweatpants and the old concert t-shirt from a band we saw in college. He was humming. Our dog thwacked her tail against the cabinet. "You're out of maple syrup," he said, opening the pantry. "I know. There's honey," I said. He grimaced. "Honey on pancakes is a hate crime." I rolled my eyes and flicked the spatula at him. "Okay, dramatic. It's sweet, it's sticky, it's not syrup," he said, laughing, and then kissed my temple. "I'll run out. Be right back." That could be the most innocent sentence in the world. And maybe any other Saturday, it would be. He doesn't run out for anything before coffee. He hates grocery stores. He hates morning errands. He grumbles about the line. He always says, "It can wait." He always waits until after breakfast or makes me go. But he left his phone on the counter. I might not have noticed, but it buzzed twice in a row. Then again. Not like the frequent buzzing of a group text, more like the quick, insistent tap, tap, tap of someone sending fragmented, nervous messages. The screen lit up with the preview brightness I've seen 1,000 times. I still almost didn't look. Almost. But the name on the screen poked at something inside me like a sharp stick. Maya. My best friend. My maid of honor. The person I called when my mom was in the hospital and I needed someone to remind me to eat. The woman who has sat at this counter and helped me peel potatoes for Thanksgiving. Who knows exactly how I take my coffee. Who texts me, "I saw a dog that looks like Bean today," because she knows I love that. My thumb did not need to move. I tell myself this over and over. I could have stepped away. I could have walked into the quiet bathroom and closed the door and breathed. I could have put the pan on low and waited till he got back and said something like, "I'm not feeling pancakey today. Let's just make eggs." I could have done that. Instead, I watched the preview flash on the screen and I felt like the kitchen floor shifted under my feet. "Call me when you can. We need to talk." Then, "I can't stop thinking about last night." Then, "Please don't say it was a mistake, please." The urge to vomit rose up so fast I tasted metal in my mouth. My brain did all the things it does when it wants to protect you, the stupid things. Maybe she's talking about a show. Maybe she had a bad date. Maybe she texted the wrong, but if she texted the wrong person, why would it say, "Please don't say it was a mistake," like they both knew what they were talking about? Maybe it was a fight with her on and off torturous situationship, the one we used to gossip about over cheap wine. That would make sense. "Please say it wasn't a mistake" is something you say when you're begging for an answer you know you're not going to get. Except her name was on his screen. I wiped my hands on a dish towel. My palms were damp. I clicked the stove off because I could already smell the second side overcooking, and I didn't want to stain the morning with the smell of burnt pancakes. I picked up his phone. The code. My birthday. Same as always. It opened with a soft little click, like the sound a mouth makes when it's just been kissed, and pulls away. Maya's messages were there in a soft blue bubble sequence against white, familiar because of how often she texts me. Was texting me. Will text me. I don't even know what tense to use anymore. Last night wasn't just a moment, was it? Don't make me the only one who says it. I can come over later. We can have coffee. Or I can just see you for 5 minutes. Say something so I know you haven't disappeared. There were no messages from him in response. None. I clicked on the thread, scrolled up in a panic, my fingers moving faster than my stomach. There were older messages, a lot of older messages. Pictures of a puppy in a sweater, a random TikTok link, and in between, ones that made my blood go cold. I've never felt seen like this from him. March. He had typed that to her in March.
Not even when she looks at me.
She loves you, Maya had replied. I love her. And then the next line. I know, that's the worst part. The worst part. A forest grew in my chest, brambles pressing into every soft place. Part of me wanted to throw up right there on the Persian rug that we bought from a market on vacation, the one he bargains on like a man who loves a dance. Part of me wanted to burn the phone, burn the house, dissolve into the floor. Part of me wanted to be rational and calm and say, well, okay, maybe that's just emotional intimacy. Maybe they stepped over a line with words, but not bodies. The pictures would decide it. The pictures or the goodbye messages. The I can't do this messages. The cruelty of people trying to be good while being terrible. I scrolled, and I found them. Not graphic, not naked, because they're careful. They are careful with their betrayals. But I could see them together, their faces lining the bottom of a selfie like a coin minted in secret. My husband's smile tilted in a way that he saves for my camera, her eyes soft in that selfie way you use when you're capturing something you want to remember but don't want to brag about. In one, their shoulders are pressed together tightly. In another, his hand is visible, flat against the small of her back. And then there is a photo of a coffee mug on our porch railing, the morning semi-sun making a pattern of leaves on the wood. Her mug. I know it's hers because it's the one she bought at a thrift store, the one that says world's okayest human, the one she brings to my house like it's staying for the weekend. In one message, from a date 2 weeks ago, I can't believe we're doing this here. His reply, it feels like the only place that makes sense. Here. Here meaning where? Our home? The place where my sweaters live, folded in drawers, because he says he likes how they smell when they've been trapped in cedar too long. The place where we hang Christmas stockings. The place where we say silly things like honey is fine for pancakes and have arguments about the correct shelf for the hot sauce. I did not hear the front door open. I did not hear his footsteps. I only realized he was back when I felt his hand brush the countertop for the phone, his fingers patting in that absent way you do for your habitual object. Where's? He saw me holding it. 1,000 expressions flickered over his face. Fear, like a deer in those headlights you pray for it to cross. Confusion, anger, pity. The one that worried me most, the one that looked like relief. You left it, I said. I could feel my voice like a rope pulling me upward. I was trying so hard not to fall apart that every word felt like something I had to climb. Maya texted. His mouth opened and closed twice. A fish trying to say something to air. He set the brown paper bag with the syrup on the counter and then stepped back as if it had exploded. You read, he started. Yes, I said. I read the recent ones. I read March. I felt something wild and dangerous in me then, the kind of calm that sits at the center of a tornado. I put the phone down. I read enough. He looked like he might be sick. I was going to tell you. When? I asked. After pancakes? It wasn't like... He ran a hand through his hair. His hair is just long enough to catch his fingers. He does that when he's nervous. It wasn't like we planned. It just happened? I finished for him because this is what people say. Did it happen in my house? In my bed? In the car you taught me to drive? Where did it just happen? He flinched. That made something in me both satisfied and deeply sad. I don't want to be someone who wants their husband to flinch. He leaned on the counter for a second, then pushed off. It started with talking, he said, which is never the beginning people think it is. We were at your birthday in March. You went to bed early. I had a migraine, I said. He knows what my migraines are like. He knows how the world goes sharp and bright and too loud and too unpleasant to survive. He put his hand on my back and guided me upstairs that night. He got me water, kissed my forehead, moved my hair off my face like you move branches off a trail so you can pass. Which means he walked back downstairs after that and sat on my couch and poured himself another drink and stayed. You went to bed, he said now, eyes moving to the window like he wished he could climb out of it.
She'd had a fight with her boyfriend. You know how she gets.
I do know how she gets. That's the thing that breaks me in new ways every second. I know both of these people. I know their good parts and their cracks. I could draw you a map of my husband's heart. I could chart you a constellation of Maya's trauma responses. These are not strangers I can easily hate. They're my family. She started crying, he continued. We just connected. His voice broke. It's not an excuse. But it is, a little. I saw it even then. That subtle move where he tried to create space for himself to do what he did. The way he wasn't going to say everything, the way he would let me fill in the blanks with the nicest versions available. He took a breath. We kissed, he said. Just that, at first. And then we said we would stop. But that is not what happened, I said. My throat felt like glass. No, he said, and I swear I watched him look for a thing to lean on inside himself and find sand. It's not. He sat down on one of the stools, still bracing his hands on the edge of the counter like a ledge over an abyss. I stayed standing. The dog put her head on my knee in that way she does when she senses my heart. I leaned down and put my fingers behind her ears because touching something soft was the only thing keeping me from fracturing. He told me pieces. He did not give me details, and I did not ask because I could feel details turning to acid in my stomach. They started meeting for coffee under the guise of checking in, which was the sort of phrase I used for my job and for my relationships with coworkers, and apparently my husband uses for kissing my best friend.
They would sit at a cafe and talk about music and us and her loneliness and his, which felt like theft. Stealing the language for intimacy and using it to wrap up something ugly, like gift wrapping garbage. It was worse because they told themselves they were complex and literary about it, sending each other quotes from poems about hearts being dumb creatures, about people making mistakes, about how love is complicated and messy. It felt like an insult to poets. It felt like an insult to love. It felt like something I couldn't not do, he said, barely making eye contact. And then last night, he paused. Indecision hung in the air like humidity. Last night we crossed a line. He thought that would spare me, I think. He thought that half sentences meant he was being kind. But sometimes kindness is saying the hard thing so plainly it cuts. Because not saying it leaves space for my mind to paint the details, which it has done 1,000 times. In the quiet hours when sleep would not come. We slept together. He tried again. His voice cracking on the last word like a plank under weight. It was in her apartment. Something small and fragile cracked in me. Relief that it wasn't here, pain that it was anywhere. He watched my face close like a door and reached out with his hand, stopped just short of touching my elbow. I'm so sorry, he said, and his eyes were flooded, and I could see the little kid in him who used to be punished for breaking things that weren't his, who learned how to take his hands away from the mess and say sorry in a voice that could pass for truth. This is the problem. I love him. He is capable of hurting me, and I'm still capable of seeing him. I need you to leave, I heard myself say. My voice was calm and quiet and even, the way his gets when he's talking to Bean after she chews the corner of a baseboard. Right now. He recoiled like he'd been struck. Where would I go? Call a friend? A hotel? Your brother? The moon, I said, and my mouth did a small, hysterical chuckle that sounded nothing like me, and everything like someone stuck above a screaming cavern. Just not here. He looked at the pancakes on the counter, the pan sitting cold on the stove, the butter soft and waiting. I'll pack a bag, he said, and his voice was desperate and breathless now, as if staying here or not staying here held the answer to everything. Please don't. He didn't finish whatever that plea was going to be, because he is a man who knows that words can be bricks or bridges, and he couldn't figure out which ones to lay down. He went upstairs. I listened to the low thud of his feet, the sound of drawers, the zipper of the black duffel I gave him last Christmas. I listened because sound felt like something that could anchor me to reality. It's weird how you can be living inside horror and still think about logistics. I was thinking about where he would put his toothbrush. I was thinking about whether he would take his phone charger or if he had a second one in his car.
I was thinking about the frozen dumplings in our freezer and if they were technically mine or ours, or if now they were a commentary on how naive I'd been to think anything was just ours. He came down with a bag and a jacket draped over his arm, eyes red and lips pressed together. He put the keys to the house on the counter, like some drama he felt obliged to perform. "I don't want to make this worse," he said, which was hilarious in a tragic way. "I want to fix it." "I will fix it." "Get out," I said softly. And I did not yell, because I could feel my voice like a thin glass and I did not want it to shatter. He looked at me for a long time with that searching expression that used to make me feel like a prom queen crowned and carefully stepping through confetti, like I was the only person in the room. Then he nodded, bent to kiss the top of the dog's head, and let himself out. The front door clicked quietly. I stood in the kitchen for a moment looking at the pancakes. One of them had a bubble pattern that looked like the letter C. I wondered what part of my brain had the energy to find letters in pancake bubbles while my life was cracking open. Then I called Maya. I don't know what script I thought I would fall into. Maybe there's an internal file we all have titled, "When your best friend sleeps with your husband, do this." In mine, I guess I imagine myself hitting her number and telling off this woman who shares my history and screams lyrics with me on road trips. Maybe I would hang up, or cry, or do the calm thing where I talk like a disappointed parent. Maybe I would tell her to come get her from my house and say words like boundaries and betrayal, and I hope you find healing somewhere very far from me. What I did not expect was for the call to go straight to voicemail. The system lady's voice read me her number like a song I suddenly hated. I hung up and texted. I know. The typing bubble appeared 3 dots and then disappeared. Appeared and disappeared. Appeared until it made me want to throw the phone into the sink. Finally, a message landed. "Can I come over?" I typed, "No." Then, "Not now." Then, "Not today, or tomorrow, or this week." I deleted that. I watched my fingers shake over the keyboard and realized I didn't want to say anything I couldn't stand by. I told her, "He told me, please give me space." She wrote, "Okay, I'm sorry. That doesn't help. I know it doesn't. I'm so sorry." I wanted to tell her to stop cursing in my texts like the universe cares about her vocabulary. I wanted to tell her that she's always been sorry, even as a child, saying sorry like a coin she could toss in a fountain and get a wish. I didn't respond. My phone felt like a hot thing in my hand, and I set it face down on the counter next to the soft butter that was no longer needed. I did something very un-me next. I poured a small splash of bourbon into the coffee mug and added it to the coffee I'd made. It was barely anything, just enough to warm me in a different way. I took a sip and it slid down. Felt like a line of light heating my insides, and I could breathe for approximately 30 seconds. Then the heat became a reminder that nothing helps for long. I wandered the house. It's strange how spaces change when the truth rearranges your furniture. Our living room looked like a memory of itself. The couch where we had watched a dozen movies and debated 100 plot lines, had he sat on it with her and watched something, telling her his weird pet theory about character arcs? The hallway mirror where I always ask, "Does this look okay?" And he says, "You look like you," like that's the highest compliment you can pay a person. Had Maya stood in front of it and adjusted her hair? I knew last night was at her place, but apparently some of it had been here. Coffee mugs and little jokes and the flirtation that had become living, breathing betrayal. It felt like our walls had ears and had kept quiet for months. When I went upstairs, the bed looked innocent. Isn't that sick? The bed that had held us sleep superglued pillows forming a mountain between us on hot nights and then getting kicked to the floor anyway because we can't sleep without reaching for the other. This bed still looked like comfort. The duvet had the indentations of where we'd slept previously. One indentation for him, one for me. The space between held something I don't know how to classify now. I did what I always do when I don't know what else to do. I cleaned. I stripped the bed, even though it wasn't contaminated, and I ran the sheets through the wash like I was trying to scour my life. I wiped the kitchen counters even though they were already clean. I rearranged the spice rack. I took the dog for a long walk through our neighborhood and let the sunlight pool on my face and tried to make my body move in a way that said, life continues, whether or not you participate. I nodded at neighbors, the deferential suburban nod that says, we are polite people with tidy lawns, even though it felt like I had a neon sign over my head blinking, betrayed. Every step had a memory in it. like stepping on pebbles of a childhood driveway. There, the park bench where he proposed, laughing because my ring was on a red thread in his pocket because he'd forgotten the box. There, the coffee shop where Maya and I used to plan imaginary vacations we'd never take, pointing at Instagram photos and asking, what if? And why not? Every ordinary street corner became a museum of our life. At home, I sat on the floor and let the dog put her head in my lap, and I cried. I don't know how long. Every time I thought I'd run out of tears, my body found a new reserve and dipped a ladle in. The crying was not delicate. My face swelled, my nose felt like it belonged to someone else, which I guess is fitting because parts of my life felt borrowed and unreturned. I pressed my forehead against my knees. When I finally lifted it, my cheeks had dried in tight patches of salt. I opened my laptop and clicked on the email tab, and for a stupid 3 minutes, I did work. I typed a reply to a client about a brand narrative using phrases like authentic story and customer journey, and I wanted to scream because my own story felt hijacked by people who should have been building it with me. I clicked send and then shut the laptop and whispered to myself for the first time since he left, it happened. Like I was the bearer of headlines in my chest. I called my sister. She lives an hour away, but emotionally, she lives right next to me. She answered on the second ring, her voice bright, and I couldn't say anything for a minute, just breathed like I'd run too fast. Hey, she asked. What's wrong? I told her. Not everything, not yet. The bones of it. Our conversation felt like throwing ropes between our hearts and pulling until they were taut. She is very good at not saying, I told you so, in situations where she might want to. My sister had always been skeptical of the romanticized closeness between me and Maya, the way our lives were braided. But she didn't do that. She said, I'm coming. You don't have to, I said, because I have a disease called not wanting to need anyone. I'm coming, she repeated, and she hung up in that decisive way she has always had, even as a child. He texted around noon. I'm at Jake's, which is his best friend's place, a safe house for wayward men. Before I could reply another, I'm here, I'm not running away, I typed, don't come home. I stared at the words for a long time. I added, I need time. He wrote, okay, then, when can we talk? Then, please. I did not answer. Maya wrote in the afternoon, I am so sorry, I know sorry is nothing. I will give you whatever you ask for. If you want me to disappear, I will. If you want me to explain, I will. If you want me to never speak to you again, I will. If you want to scream at me, I will pick up and sit with it. I love you. I know that's salt in the wound. I do. And there with her words, I could almost hear her voice, the way she gets breathless when she's trying to over-explain, like if she can talk fast enough, she can outrun the train she set in motion. I started 100 replies. I wrote, you were supposed to be my person. I wrote, out of all the people in the world, why did you pick my home to set fire to? I wrote, how dare you? I wrote, I want to never see your face again. And I want to go back in time and have us watch bad TV in our sweatpants and share a bowl of popcorn and talk about men like they were the problem, not us. None of those got sent. I put my phone inside a drawer and closed it as if phones need timeouts. My sister arrived late afternoon with a bag of groceries like she could fix a ruptured artery with hummus and grapes. She hugged me the way she hugs, our bodies flush and sturdy, her cheek pressed to mine. I cried again in the shoulder of her sweater. She made tea. We sat on the couch and she said, say it. I said, they slept together. Saying those words felt like eating sand. Do you want him back? She asked, which is a brutal but practical question. I stared at the wall. I want back what I thought I had, I said finally. She nodded, held my hand. We performed little acts of life. We ate crackers. We took the dog out again. We folded the sheets, the warm cotton feeling like some kind of baptism in my hands. She slept in the guest bed with the door slightly open, the way I used to leave it open when we were little and monsters hid in the dark corners of the room. I lay in my bed in the center of the duvet because taking my side felt like admitting the absence. At 2:17 a.m., I woke up with my heart jacking around in my chest like it was trying to sprint out through my collarbone. There was a shadow on the ceiling that looked like a question mark. I got up and wandered to the kitchen, poured cold water into a glass, and stood at the sink sipping slowly. The moon shone through the window above the sink and lit the faucet like a little silver sculpture. I couldn't stop replaying tiny moments. The time 2 months ago that I walked into the living room and they were sitting too close and laughed too hard when I asked what was funny. The way he and Maya had a private joke about a movie quote that I didn't get, and I told myself I was overthinking it because sometimes people just click on things you don't click on. The missed calls, the I'm running late, the silky answers that I accepted because I am not a cop and this is not an interrogation. I thought about the red flag that started waving weeks ago when he changed his lock screen. He had a photo of us at the beach, the sun setting behind us like a cliché we earnestly believed in. Then one day, it was just a gradient with some inspirational phrase. I asked him why, and he said he wanted less clutter visually. I laughed and told him he was ridiculous, and maybe he was right. But it was a small subtraction, and so were 100 others, and eventually all the subtractions add up to this: me in the kitchen sipping water like it could drown the ache. In the morning, I woke from a thin, panicky sleep with a gritty headache. My sister made coffee and toast. She looked at me over her mug. "What now?" she asked. No judgment, just a knife-sharp desire to find a plan in the chaos. "I don't know," I said. "Therapy." I held my own mug close like a talisman. "A lawyer?" She nodded, rubbed the top of my hand. "This is not a decision day," she said. I repeated that like a mantra. This is not a decision day. I do not have to decide everything right now. I need to protect myself, get tests to be safe, find a therapist, talk to a lawyer maybe, set boundaries like sandbags around a house mid-flood. He texted again, mid-morning. "Can I come by to talk? I can wait outside if you want." The audacity, the sweetness, the nerve. I stared at the message until the little blue dot went away. I typed slowly. "Not today." My finger hovered over send like it was attached to a grenade pin. I sent it. My phone vibrated almost immediately with Maya's name again. I let it go to voicemail. Later, out of a mix of masochism and curiosity and a twisted desire for information, I listened. Her voice was threadbare. "I don't expect your forgiveness," she said. Please don't let my worst thing become your story. You are not what I did. You are you. I am so sorry. I hope you let me say it to your face someday and then you can slam the door." The voicemail ended with a soft choking sound. I threw my phone onto the couch like it was a snake. There is a part of me that wants to write an angry list titled Things They Stole, the future Christmases I thought we would spend, the baby names we tried on jokingly in bed, the 4th of July fireworks scene from the back of his old pickup, the way he kisses me on the forehead when he thinks I'm not listening, the cheap wine nights with Maya, where we talked about how we would not be like our mothers and their regrets, and how we would be like them in their ferocious care. The trust. Mostly the trust. The part of me that writes lists is trying to quantify grief so it doesn't drown me. The part of me that loves them both is trying to bargain. Maybe there is a version of this world where people make horrible choices and then do the work to be better and then we are all okay. And the part of me that is simply an animal is in pain, and all it knows to do is howl. In the afternoon, around the time the light makes our kitchen glow, there was a knock on the door. My whole body stiffened. My sister came to the top of the stairs and looked at me with that one eyebrow raised in question. I went to the door and looked through the peephole. It wasn't him. It wasn't her. It was my neighbor, an older woman with soft hands who brings over lemon bars sometimes. She held a Tupperware with something casserole-shaped. "I made too much," she said when I opened the door. "Don't tell me if I'm wrong, but you look like someone who could use a meal delivered in a plastic container." She said it in a voice that made me want to hug her sharp shoulder blades. I took the casserole. I cried again. We sat that night, with the casserole and the dog, and my sister's quiet, coherent presence, and I realized I had not really let the shock recede enough to feel the anger underneath. The anger was rising like a tide now, slow and undeniable. It was messy. It made me want to text, call, drive, scream, throw things, book a flight to anywhere with a beach and a bartender who doesn't ask questions. I did not do any of those things, because my therapist's voice in my head kept whispering, "Don't make any permanent decisions or permanent statements while the adrenaline is this high." I hate how sensible that sounds. I hate how it's right. That night, when the house was quiet in that way that new loneliness is loud, I sat at my desk and opened a document and started to type this out. Because I don't know what to do, and sometimes strangers on the internet hand you a lantern. The rational parts. We've been married 6 years, together 9. No kids, not by lack of trying, but by the complicated emptiness that is a quiet house after a miscarriage that broke us in ways I did not fully understand at the time. A best friend of 15 years, a life built in small and big ways. He has never given me a reason not to trust him, until he did. She has always been the person who would show up with a lasagna when I was sick, until she didn't. The red flags I ignored, the lock screen, the late nights working when I thought his eyes looked lit from within and I chalked it up to passion. The way he got moody and then weirdly sweet. The way Maya started declining my last-minute hangouts and said she had work to catch up on or just wasn't in a social mood, and I believed her because I believe things. The time I walked in on them hugging in our kitchen, and it was a little too tight and a little too long, and I told myself I was scolding the wrong things. The way they shared a Spotify playlist and she'd send me songs from it like it was ours. The betrayal moment was small in action, just a phone screen lit up with soft blue bubbles, but massive in consequence. The messages had that smell of fresh paint over water damage. You can tell. You can tell when someone has been living inside a lie because its edges are soft. I keep seeing myself in the reflection of the oven door that morning, hair wild, spatula in one hand, phone in the other, eyes wide and otherworldly. Later, when I brushed my teeth, my face looked older. Isn't that unfair? That you can age in a day? What now? I don't know. Divorce is a word bouncing around in my mouth like a pebble I can't swallow and can't spit out. Counseling, maybe, if I can stand the thought of sitting in a room with him and a third person and trying to stitch something that feels beyond repair. Drawing lines in the sand like you do not come into the house until I say so. We each get a day to pick up our things. We go to doctors for tests because my life is not a gamble. Probably therapy for me, a doctor's appointment to check my body while my heart tries to staunch its own bleeding. Maybe a pause on everything except breath. I hate that I still waited for his text tonight. I hate that when I saw his name light my screen, my heart did that little rabbit kick it has always done. I love you, he wrote, as if saying it is a salve that can be applied to wounds. I stared at it and thought, if you love me, you don't do this. Then, because the human brain is a contrary thing, I also thought, people who love each other do horrible things to each other sometimes, and it is not my job to make sense of that right now. I haven't decided anything. I don't know if I'll ever be able to look at either of them again without seeing the secret. I don't know if forgiveness is a thing I want to pursue, or a thing I want to drive away with a stick, or a thing that will show up uninvited. I don't know if I can spend the rest of my life wondering if Pancake Day is an act of love or a reenactment of a lie. Tomorrow, he wants to come over and talk. He says he has things to say, the whole truth. My sister says I don't need to give him that meeting yet. My therapist would likely say to script it, set a time, invite a friend to be nearby, set rules like nothing sexual, no blame shifting, no minimizing. Part of me wants to listen because structure is a ladder out of chaos. Part of me wants to curl up in the bed still warm from the dryer and sleep for 100 years. People like to say it will get better, and I know they're right in some macro measured sense. The body heals, the heart has scar tissue, the brain finds new grooves to run thoughts through. But right now, I am in the place where your chest breathes oh and no on a loop. Right now, I still pick up my phone to text my best friend about a weird ad I saw and then remember. Right now, I still reach out in the night and feel the empty spot in the bed and pull my hand back like it burned me. My dog snores softly. A neighbor's wind chime sings a tune it sang before my life pivoted. The sun will come up tomorrow and flip the light switch on the world, indifferent and warm. Maybe I'll make pancakes. Maybe I'll switch to eggs. Maybe I'll throw out the honey. Tonight, I'm here, writing to people who have been here and can maybe tell me what to do with the pieces. He wants to come by at 10 tomorrow. She wants to know if there is anything she can do except disappear. I want the world to rewind. I want a script for what happens next. I want to know whether sitting at our kitchen table across from him will gouge at the wound in a way that only breaks me more, or if it will be step one in something resembling closure. I don't have those answers. I only have one decision I can make right this second. I am going to bed. I am going to breathe in and out and in and out and pretend that's a plan. I am going to leave the bottle of syrup on the counter as evidence that not every errand is a lie, and as proof that even on days when everything breaks, somebody remembered to grab the good kind for the pancakes. TLDR. Found texts between my husband and my best friend. Learned they'd crossed boundaries months ago and slept together last night. He left. I told her I need space. I'm devastated. Unsure what happens next, and he wants to come by tomorrow to talk.